Welcome to Off the Blocks, the podcast version of Concordium's AMAs. Your unique opportunity to take a peek behind the scenes, ask questions, and hear all about our vision, unplugged and firsthand.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Off the Blocks, Episode 1, Concordium's AMA series. I'm very excited to be here. I'm your host, Ernest, and I'm from the DevX initiative by Concordium. And we're going to be starting this series of Twitter spaces where we get to interact with the community, have conversations with guests from Concordium, and really tackle and wrestle some of the very interesting topics in the blockchain crypto space. I'm here with a very special guest, someone who is a friend, a mentor, someone who I've had some great interactions with and great conversations about so many things in this space about, and that is Beni Issembert, the CMO of Concordium. Hi, Benny. Do you want to say hello?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I can say hello after your good words. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, hello to everybody. Very happy to be back on Twitter Space with you, Ernest, and very excited to tackle the concept of Metaverse with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just a warning, when me and Benny get going on a conversation, when it involves like philosophy or anything else, you might be here for a while, even though we do have a limit on this episode. When me and Benny get going on a conversation, it can really get quite deep. So I'm really excited for this, and I'm really excited for you to be the first guest on this Off the Block series. The topic we're going to be tackling today is the metaverse. We're going to be really trying to explore some of the unique challenges that the metaverse offers. We're going to be talking about what a metaverse actually is. And we're also going to explore how Concordium is uniquely positioned as a platform for builders to come and really flesh out some of the regulatory and moderation requirements for a metaverse. I think we need to discuss, how you would even moderate or regulate a metaverse, how it fits into our current perception of real world regulation. And there's a lot to really unpack here with this. So I'm really excited to get this topic going. Just a few points of housekeeping before we get into things. We will be having a process where we will first start with some questions that were sent in by the community members prior to this event. And then we will have an open mic section where we will allow people to come up on stage and ask questions and engage in discourse with us. We want to keep things as respectful and as cordial as possible. The focus will be on the topic and not on, anything else you may have necessarily a focus on. So that's where we will lead the questions and ask the questions to be focused on. And that will be the last section of this event. So please bear with us. Once we have had a bit of an introduction and a bit of a Q&A between me and Benny, I will then ask him some questions from the community, and then we will open up the mic at the end, towards the end, for you folks in the room to come up and interact with us. It's really important that you do get involved and don't be shy. We really want this to be a conversation and not just a seminar or a TED talk. This is about you folks in the community engaging with Concordium as well, and some of the questions that are being built as the platform continues to flourish. So please feel free to do that at the right point in time. So I'll make it known when we're going to allow people to come up on stage. So please bear with us on that. Now we're going to move into our first question. But Benny, did you want to give a bit of background on yourself, just so that people know who you are? Because there are a lot of new community members who've come into Concordium, and it would be great to know a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I'm going to be very short on this. You spoke about philosophy, so I have an academic background in philosophy of sciences with a PhD from John Hopkins. But for the last 20 years, I'm dealing with complex technologies and trying to bring a little bit of ethics in between the lines of codes. And I've been very much, involved with the crypto community from the beginning. I'm a Bitcoin miner that does treats himself. I used to be until 2016 a Bitcoin miner, and I co-founded BIM, which is a privacy cryptocurrency based on Mimblewimble, a very complex, also scientific protocol. And since 2019, I'm a very happy CMO at Concordium. I'm based in Israel, but I was born and raised in France, happily married, and I have two beautiful daughters that I love more than everything else.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that intro, Benny. And I'm surprised if anybody doesn't know who you are, but of course, it's always good to give that context. So starting off, kicking things off, what exactly is a metaverse in your
Uh,
mind?
And I like that you ask this question, what is a metaverse? Because a lot of people are talking about the metaverse, if you want to, so to speak, one metaverse, but there is not only one metaverse. A metaverse is a virtual environment that could be used at the moment for gaming or for living in a virtual society. So if you want, to resume this in a very simple phrase, it is, virtual reality, environment based where people can interact between themselves. Now, it's not a new concept. I know that for some of us this is quite new, but for people that were here during the 90s and were able to read some books, the metaverse is coming from the sci-fi, literature, and it was expressed for the first time in a very interesting novel called Snow Crash. And I invite you, all of you guys, to read it. It's amazing. And obviously, it has been, a kind of recurrent element in the pop culture. If you are following The Flash, for example, on CW, you will find a lot of things about, the metaverses and the parallel universes, etc. And more closer to us, Spielberg in his incredible movie Ready Player One was presenting his version of the metaverse. It's called the Oasis for gamers, but also where you can have, some social lives. And we can definitely also define one of the earliest social networks before Facebook or before Facebook became what Facebook has become. I'm speaking about Second Life here. That was, back, I think something like 13 years ago, the first version of a virtual society where you could live a real life if you want to.
Absolutely. And, those were great examples that you cited as well. The movie Ready Player One was one of the first kind of really big mainstream films that adapted from a novel as well. So there's also a book called Ready Player One. And that was really what opened up a lot of other people's minds to the possibility of like virtual worlds and living in virtual worlds. But these things have existed from before that. You've had games like The Sims, and you even cited Second Life and Eve Online. I think the metaverse is a very interesting intersect between a lot of different things that we already have, and it's all bringing it into one kind of arena. And I think that there's some very exciting possibilities with that, if we can get through some of the challenges that it will present. One of the things that I wanted to pose as a question to you is regulation. And regulation is it's a very complex thing when you kind of place it in an environment and in a paradigm like this. What does regulation even mean for something like a metaverse? One example that you can cite is when you see children in a nursery playing in the sandbox. There's always ways people kind of organize themselves and get together and things like that, but there are overlaps with a metaverse in that, a glorified giant virtual sandbox. How do you regulate something like that? Like, what does regulation mean, first of all, for something like that? And how do you even go about beginning to regulate something like that?
I think that the concept of regulation has been, very badly received lately by most of the people dealing with crypto, blockchain, and tech in general. Regulation is not necessarily something that is bad. It means that this is the only way for individuals to create a kind of contract to live together in a kind of collective, environment. Let's say that if the metaverse is where, one metaverse per user, then you don't need any kind of, regulation. You do what we call self-regulation. You do whatever you want to do. But at the moment that I need to interact with you, for example, Ernest, in the metaverse or anywhere in any kind of society, a human society, then we need a set of rules that are going to be agreed by the two of us and that are going to govern our life to get together in this specific space. I'm going to give you a very simple example. I mean, I'm not certain that in the UK you can go naked in the street, whether it is allowed, whether it is a good practice not to do that. But this is a part of what the French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau has defined as a social contract. So regulation for me, from a humble point of view, means that we need to create a kind of new code or existing code that will govern our life together as a kind of a collective of individuals. And the metaverse as a concept of parallel universe or parallel society cannot avoid the fact that it must be governed by laws that are agreed upon most of the vast majority of their users. Whether it is based on morality, meaning good and evil, based on a kind of, I would say, a theocratic approach, not necessarily. We can build also a social contract, or we can adapt a social contract or regulation based on what is allowed and what is forbidden without any kind of judgmental morality or these kind of things. So long story short, on the regulation, it's a big word for something that is very, very simple and basic to understand. We want to live together in a proper way when we respect each other, we protect each other, and we grow together in a fair way and with a lot of social justice. How we do that? By establishing a set of rules that will be followed by the vast majority.
No, those are excellent points. Thank you very much for that. But I do want to press you on something. I mean, you did say that you're a Bitcoiner, and that comes with its own connotations. One thing that I wanted to kind of ask as a follow-on to that is, where does the kind of crypto anarchic element come in to the concept of regulation? Because we all know that in not just in Bitcoin, but in various other blockchains, there's these notions of like, oh, well, we'll just sort ourselves out. We'll just govern ourselves. We'll make it work. And I think that was part of what I was talking about with the children in the sandbox playing in the nursery, because, a lot of people feel like there should be no regulation at all. There should be no one interfering in my life, and then there's the notions of how self-sovereignty has been framed by certain blockchain projects, crypto projects in certain crypto communities. Like, I wanted to push you on that and see why do you feel that, there needs to be, why can't we just regulate ourselves? Why can't we just form our own rules and social contracts?
I think that's maybe. I mean, I know where you want to take me, Ernest. To be honest, I'm gonna be short on this. By regulation, I didn't mean any kind of public regulation coming from public authorities. Regulation is a philosophical concept that can be applied by two people. It can be you and me, and I think that the crypto world, and I disagree with the concept of crypto anarchism because they are misleading us. Anarchy never meant, kind of mess and without any kind of, regulation. I mean, the father of the anarchy concept is Joseph Proudhon, another French philosopher. And by anarchy meant order without power. And that's completely different than a big mess without any kind of rules. But what I wanted to say is that the crypto and the blockchain world have came, lately with a very interesting concept as a society or as a kind of entity. We can, call them decentralized autonomous organization. You can call them the way you want. But even a decentralized automated and organization and an autonomous organization will have to set some rules to be governed. Whether this is a kind of superior or a highly, authority coming from the state, or whether it's just you and me that we just decide we don't talk, for example, in our metaverse about politics, because we disagree on, I don't know, on several points, and we can set this rule to ourselves. What I meant by regulation, that it's simply like that at one point, if we want to live together, we'll have to define a set of rules that we will all follow. Whether it's coming from the state, whether it's coming from the participants, or whether it's coming from the tech, because a smart contract, if you want so, I'm just discrazing a little bit now, but a smart contract is a kind, if you want, as a kind of regulation tool between two parties or several parties. So yes, regulation / moderation, I would say, it could be self-done or it could be imposed also by the community itself.
And those are great points, and actually follow on to my next question around moderation versus regulation, because some of that nuance has to be tackled as well. Anybody in here who's been on a forum, internet forum, knows that there are moderators and there are tierings of moderators on any kind of public internet forum. So how do we get that distinction between moderation versus regulation, or are they actually overlapping in the same way when it comes to the metaverse, when we talk about governing in a three-dimensional space? Almost, a forum, it's like an internet forum in a three-dimensional space. Who are the moderators? Who would be a moderator? And how do we stop ourselves from falling into the same sort of traps that we've fallen into in the current world that we're in, the quote unquote real world that we're in?
Yeah, I know from where you're coming when it comes to moderation. I mean, for me, moderation and regulation are two concepts that are part of the same system. If you want to, I'm going to take, an example. The regulation is that you must pay your tax in the UK where you are based, Ernest, right? If you don't do that, then this is the regulation. And if you don't do, yeah, that's another question. But this is the regulation. It means that every citizen in the UK that is making an earning must pay, some income tax. The moderation is coming, from the people that are enforcing, those rules. So I think that we don't have, to say moderation versus regulation. I think that the moderation is a direct effect of the regulation. It means that you have set a set of rules, and now you need to enforce them. It will be done, and it must be done in a kind of democratic way. This is what I believe. I'm not, signing on the fact that it will happen in the metaverse, because I may be too old for this kind of things. I mean, I can be surprised, and I would like to be surprised. But humanity isn't perfect. The civilizations that we have seen were never perfect. And I don't think that the metaverses are going to avoid being subject to this rule, so to speak. So it means that one of the main challenges of this evolution of our society is how to govern this new space, how we are going to stay virtual, but still, respecting each other, etc., etc. And I would like to end, this question by just, framing it in another way. The moment that a couple of human beings are going to land on Mars, for example, following maybe our dear Elon, then we are going to ask ourselves the same kind of question. Are we going to regulate the life on Mars? What kind of regulation, and who will enforce it? But we don't have all the answers at the moment. But I'm certain that those discussions are going to be, keeping us very busy in the next couple of months and years.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's really interesting. I wanted to know, as a follow-on to that as well, what you thought about some of these new hybrid models that are coming out of the blockchain crypto space, like DAOs and things like that. How do you think they could be applied into a metaverse? I'm sure that they will be, and they already are being planned to be. But I'm really interested in how you see how DAOs could also fit into a dynamic, with metaverses as well.
That's my opinion. I mean, I'm not speaking about Concordium as an organization opinion, but I think that the DAO model is one of the unique solutions that are sitting at the moment on the table that we can definitely deploy on the other side of the reality and try to see what it will bring to us. Again, I'm not a big optimistic guy, as you know, Ernest. I'm more, on the careful and pragmatic side of the map. But I think that a kind of decentralized autonomous organization at a certain size, because it doesn't fit all sizes. I mean, if you tell me tomorrow Facebook Meta is going to become a DAO, I won't believe you that it will work. It's too big to be decentralized and managed in a kind of autonomous way. But I think at a very certain level of locality, if you know what I mean, we can definitely see in the DAO model something that will at least open a lot of room for new thinking about governance and how we live together, whether it is in the real world of one of the metaverses.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And it's interesting you said that you can be quite a bit of a pessimist. I'm also very similar in that respect, and I always feel like humans, we always mess things up sometimes. And we see this now with some of the situation with Ukraine and Russia and things like that. I wanted to ask you, what does geopolitics look like in the metaverse? You mentioned companies like Facebook and Microsoft having their own metaverse states, or countries almost in this thing. What does that look like? Are we going to have a UN of the metaverse? Are we going to have it just poses so many interesting new dynamics that come to play.
That's the main question. Are we going to repeat the same mistakes that we have done in the real world? This is what you are asking. I don't know, to be honest, but what I see coming is that communities are less created based on the nation of belonging, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's not because we say we share the same face, or we live on the same land and we have the same language that we are necessarily going to be friends. I think that everybody can recognize himself or herself in this kind of things. But I think that communities will be built in the metaverse based on other kind of values that just a citizenship, or that the fact that we are living in the same place. What I'm afraid of is that since most of the big actors of the internet are already positioning themselves, we can see already emerging something like what we would call the Facebook nation of this time, and the Microsoft nation. And this is very concerning because those entities are for profit. And it means that they are going to be governed by something maybe that you will not agree with. But since we are the early beginning of this evolution, I think that everything is possible. And to get back to the pop culture thing, I think it was back in the end of the 90s, Fight Club. I hope that you have read this book and saw this movie. But
My favorite movie.
It's clearly explained there that the next steps for geopolitical states, if you want, is going to become corporate. So it's well expressed that tomorrow you will have a planet that will be, I don't know, the Microsoft planet and the Facebook planet, or tomorrow also maybe the Starbucks planet. But I do see this, more in the metaverse, and I'm certain that the big companies are going to create their
Beni.
verses.
You were talking to us about, you were just sharing a point about the corporate planets essentially being formed in the metaverse.
Yeah, I mean, in the space, in Fight Club, they are speaking about space, and we can see, kind of Microsoft planet there or something like that. But the metaverse, I think we'll see more communities based on products or platforms that you are using that will try, to keep their community around their products. It's going to be a big challenge. And I really hope that we will be able to see, more communities created on the metaverse based on other kind of things that, just using a product or just, being a fan of Apple or whatsoever. I really hope we will be able to create, tangible communities that will necessarily be regulated somehow.
Absolutely agree. And this now brings me to the next point and the next question. What do you see Concordium's role in the metaverse, as a part of the metaverse, as building on top of the metaverse, or metaverse is being built on top of Concordium? I think, just knowing Concordium as a project, there are some unique attributes that it has that makes it perfectly poised for something like this. But we don't want to just go into taglines. We want to really try and understand what role Concordium can have and how it can use its unique attributes to really kind of help with some of these interesting challenges that we've just discussed.
That's the 1 million CCD, question, I would say. Yeah, I mean, how Concordium will play a role, and that's very easy, to understand. First of all, let's try to frame what we are not going to do. So we are not going to create any kind of hardware. Forget about us with AR plugged, Google's or whatsoever. This is not us. We are a software house that does, deliver a high quality of softwares based, on open source, obviously, etc., etc. Our role, and I'm not going to say that this is our role that we want to play. It's more a vocation, if you want to, or I would say, our mission without any kind of mystical stuff here, but this is our mission, and this is something that is very close to the hearts of our founders and our top management members. It's to enable users to perform whatever they are going to do in the metaverse in the most secure way and also in the most legal way. And we have created, as unique balance expressed by our software between the necessity of having, your privacy protected. And by privacy, I mean your freedom to choose where is the line between your public space and your private space. So if you need to understand privacy, you need to understand it as freedom. And on the other side of the balance, there is the necessity of accountability. Sorry for that. Because when you live in a society made of human beings, you need to be accountable for your acts. It means that if you are acting and performing in a proper way, you need to get a credit. But if you are misusing the system, you need to be punished. I'm not speaking about jail or whatsoever, but you need to be told, if you want to, not to play with the toy in the sandbox of your friend if you didn't ask for permission. And you don't have to repeat this. So Concordium has created this really incredible balance between this privacy, and meaning the freedom, and this accountability. And if you want so, with Concordium, you are free, thus accountable. And freedom means that you need to give accounts. And I'm going to quote another pop culture element here. Spider-Man, or at least his uncle, used to say to him that with great powers comes great responsibility. So with Concordium, you can transact faster, you can transact with more security, you can build in a totally, cool way, because we are as close as possible to any regulatory compliance for builders. And more than everything else, you are more private than other chains, because we are using zero knowledge proof at the core level of our identity layer that does enable you to transact in a full private way until the moment you will misuse the system, and some third party, independently to our willingness, will be able to know who you are and to ask you, to give some accounts.
No, I think this is really important. This is a really, really great statement, and a really important statement. Freedom but accountable is such a great tagline, and I think that's such an important thing to remember about. That's what Concordium is about, and that's what it enables. Whenever I speak about Concordium, one of the things I cite is, what would a social network look like if everybody was verified, if there was a real world identity behind everybody here on Twitter, not just the privileged few of the blue tick. But what does that mean in how we interact with each other? Because even just having that sometimes acts as a self-regulatory mechanism. When you know that you're accountable, you'll just act different. You'll just interact different. So I think, free but accountable is a very, very great way to frame it. I really want to thank you, Beni, for this. We're now going to jump to some questions from the community. We allowed individuals to ask questions before this event for them. So I'm just going to pick some of them up now. And then we will go to the audience and ask people to come up. I can see some of you have already requested, so that's a very great sign. I'm very excited for that. Please bear with us. We'll get to that in a few minutes. I'm just going to start with our first question, our first community question. How does Concordium maintain a balance between privacy and accountability in transactions? Can you provide more information and the importance of widespread duplication for this project? And this is by Tomi Chana, community member Tomi Chana.
That's, again, a very important question to understand. And this is the follow-up of the previous question that we had about, the sensible balance between privacy and accountability. So for me, it's the best way to illustrate, what I'm going to try to say, is to describe our identity layer. So in order to transact on a Concordium network, you must identify yourself. It doesn't mean that Concordium does the KYC. We don't do the KYC, and we don't know who you are, and we cannot care less for who, what, or whoever you want to become and who you are. What we have done is we have created this identity layer that you can plug there, as much as possible identity providers that we are working with and anonymity revokers. So it means that your identity has been provided by a third party. And what we see on chain is that whether you are enabled to transact or not, it means if you are coming from a country that is forbidding to transact in Concordium, then you will not be identified and you will not be allowed to use the chain. On the other side of the map, what we do is that at one moment, if and upon a court order coming from a democratic state or after a police investigation, the states or the public authorities could be able, to reach those anonymity revokers that are also plugged in our system and to ask to revoke the anonymity of a transaction. So we are, really deploying the concept of KYT on chain. It means that you can know who are your transactions and where they're coming from. And then we can find the person that is behind those transactions. But more than everything else, because everybody on the Concordium network is identified, it means that for you living the real world and tomorrow in the metaverse, banks are going to stay with us for a long time. You are going to be able to bring, some origin of the funds. So at any moment on Concordium, you know that the person that you are transacting with is kosher, if you know what I mean. It means that he is authorized to use the chain. And it means that from a pure regulatory point of view, from a legacy, I would say, point of view, then you are able to comply with most of the banking rules that are, today enforced. It means that there is no way for you to say, well, I don't know if the guy that is in front of me is legit. Here with Concordium, you are 100% sure that this is happening.
Thank you so much for that. And again, it's really important to reiterate that as more people come into the community, the way that the concept of KYC is being advanced by Concordium, we're moving beyond the KYC into what, I've heard you describe as KYT, know your transaction, and all of the new interesting dynamics that come out from that and possibilities that come out from that, I think are really going to be applicable in many different areas, including the metaverse. The second question from a community member, and I'm going to add a little bit onto this because it's a really good question, and I think I can make it more applicable to our topic, is I understand that Concordium is designed to integrate with current financial and business systems that require knowledge of a user's identity. But what about security? Is our data completely secure? Does this exist, the possibility to be compromised? And this is by Soppies. And I wanted to add to that, the role of crypto in the metaverse is the exchange of value in this virtual world, right? That's what, that's how it's being framed. Cryptocurrencies are going to be used in the metaverse for people to exchange virtual value for virtual things. And if Concordium is already, compliant by design with the current financial business, what new blind spots may they be with what happens in the metaverse in value exchange that could also be tackled by Concordium as well? So that's just my little adage onto that question as well. But let's tackle the initial question about how we integrate with the current financial business infrastructure. And then we can go into how that applies possibly to the metaverse.
There is quite a lot of work to be done in terms of literacy, if you know what I mean, when it comes to the banking system and the current systems, that they need to understand the users are more aware about their own rights and they want to become eventually self-sovereign. So it means that they don't want to be seen anymore as a product or as a series of data that you can process. They want to be, in control. They want to be sovereign. So there is a lot of work to do, in the understanding on the other side, but there is some willingness and readiness from the major companies that we are in talk with that are, able to understand where we are coming from and to understand the greatness and the opportunity from a pure, I would say, business point of view to tackle those kind of things. But in a certain way, you need to understand that we, as a layer one blockchain, we don't know who are the people that are transacting on chain. We just know that the people that are transacting on chain are enabled to do so. They are authorized to do so because they were KYC'd by third party, and we just see using zero knowledge proof whether they can transact or not. I don't know if you, Ernest, are a man. I don't know where you live. we don't store anything because we don't do the KYC. What we know again is whether you can use us or not. So at any point, there is no way to breach and to hack us, to extract, some database, because there is no database. We have a database of accounts, but we don't have the keys to know who is behind this account, if you know what I mean. So there is no way for us to be unsecured from this, purely point of view of security and breach and hacking. I don't know if it answers the question.
No, it does. It does really well. Yes. And how does this necessarily apply to when we get into the metaverse and the new mechanisms of value exchange that will exist there?
It is something that we need to see, because and I think that we need also to lower a little bit the passion about the metaverse. Everything needs to be built there. So what I'm going to say here, it's maybe some wishful thinking, but I think that the banking system does understand and does move today from a pure KYC centric approach, if you know what I mean. It means user, from more in terms of activity and more where we are today, meaning know your transaction stuff, not necessarily knowing immediately who is behind that. Emerging banks and smart banks and smart I would say corporates do understand very well that this is where we are going, that people are more aware about their own rights. They want to keep their financial privacy, meaning their freedom, as clean as possible, and they want to be respected for being an individual while living in a collective space.
Absolutely. And I think that really brings in, again, the new dynamic that Concordium is kind of crafting with its own unique attributes. Because, when you go around a lot of different projects, everybody talks about the big problem is identity and on-chain and privacy. Those are the two big things that a lot of people are still in other projects talking about. Whereas Concordium has actually actively taken steps to provide a very interesting solution, very unique solution to that. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what's to come with this. Thank you very much, Beni. We're now going to go to the audience, and I can see we have 2 people requested. Just before I allow you up, I really want to let you know that this is being recorded, and it will be available through our YouTube channel at a later date. If you have any issue with that, please state that, or don't come up if that's going to be a specific issue. But we just want to let you know as a disclaimer that this is being recorded for future people to enjoy the conversation. So I'm now going to let a couple of people out. We have Stringer Bell and Impactor Per. Great. It's great to have you on stage. Can you say hello so that we can
Hi
hear
there.
you?
Hi, thank you for the information and the education. Both.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah. I just had one question. When Binance? No, I'm just joking. The real question. So I'm sure everyone wants to know that, but that's not my question. No, the real question from me is, you mentioned that you were in, you're working or maybe you're talking to several corporations at the moment. Could you give a bit of information about what sectors these corporations are for, and when those talks will come to market in terms of a viable product, and also your general view on where the Concordium protocol will be most impactful in terms of the existing industries that we have now. Thank you.
Thank you for that. A very, very valuable question again. And in a very short way, we are not here, to only serve the past, if you know what I mean. We are here to serve the future. We are made for the future economy. That's our new catchphrase. I don't know if you've seen that on our website. But what does it mean? It means that we are obviously here to solve some issues that are existing today, but we are here to enable, current businesses and new business ventures to think, to design, to dream, and to deploy a new concept and new businesses that are going to serve us, whether in the reality or on the metaverse side of the map. We are talking today we are agnostic. Our chain is completely agnostic. So we are talking with a huge variety of companies coming from the car industry, obviously, because some of us are coming from this part of the world, with the financial, industry also, and mainly with the people that are building the future economy, everything related to NFTs. and we have already a platform that has been released using Concordium. It's called Space 7, and you can definitely today go there and mint NFTs, buy NFTs, etc., etc. We are talking also with a Fortune 500 companies to think together about how we can fix the world using partially or in total our technology. We have made a couple of announcements in the past. We are supporting the We2 initiative that will enable donators to charity to track their donation in a proper way and to be self-sovereign on them. We are working also with Phil, which is a Middle East, a NASDAQ listed company that is today, at the moment that we are talking, revolutioning completely the way people are using, and mainly women are using public transportation in the Middle East. And we are thinking on doing a lot of things with that. And we are also, and this is very tangible, speaking with one of the biggest actors in the car industry to create a green coin that will enable every single users on an EV, an electric car, to gain, some tokens, the more is using electric, cars. So we are trying to build here, quite a lot of use cases, templates, if you know what I mean, to invite more builders to come and to follow the path. So we are completely agnostic, but we have a pretty much clear view of what we want to deploy, and the first is already deployed. Like I said, Space 7. We have Victory that is coming also with a decentralized exchange, a centralized exchange, and an Launchpad, and an NFT platform, and we have much more to come. We are preparing those announcements very soon now to be released, and I'm certain that you will be very happy to know that big names that and from your daily life are going to use our technology to make a better world.
Thank you. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And I think even just to add a little bit to that, as we all know, you can't use a blockchain for everything. You can't use a blockchain as everything. I think what's great about this project is that it knows where to focus the real use cases for distributed ledger technology, which is why you're seeing the specific sectors that Beni mentioned. And I think what's really exciting is some of the things that are hopefully soon to be announced from the grants program, where people are, coming out with very interesting POCs, proof of concepts that will really showcase where distributed ledger technology done properly can really shine. So I think there's lots of exciting use cases that will work in the specific context as well. So I'm really excited to see a lot of what, we discussed with Beni and things like that as well. Thank you very much for your question, Stringer. Next was GG, but I don't think they are there anymore. So next we will go to Burak. Very nice to have you, Burak.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
You have a great project. I mean, I really like it. But, at this point, it's marketing is almost as important as the project itself. So what's your marketing strategy for this year?
Well, what we want to focus on is the topic that we have, which is the Metaverse. So we're here to speak about the Metaverse and how Concordium is uniquely placed to make a very positive impact there on the Metaverse. I'm sure Beni can answer your question as well, but do you have a question about the Metaverse?
No, I mean, for me, marketing is also very important too. That's why.
I understand. Beni?
Yeah, I'm gonna be short on this. Our plan with marketing is to focus on several stuff, but mainly, to invite, as much as possible use cases to come with us. We are also, and that, securing a series of listing events with exchanges, and most of the marketing activities will be done on the exchange side, as you know. We are working on content with most of the best content developers of this world that you are going to see very soon everywhere. And we are working mainly also on creating, some builders community, some users community, and some traders community in order to serve, as much as possible. The visibility of Concordium will be gained by the fact that we are used on a daily basis, and less by the fact that we are going to pump a market that is already too much pumped, if you know what I mean. We are trying to gain our mark of noblesse, if you want to, for the good reasons, and not only for the reasons that we can see that are done by other projects. But you can be certain that we are on top of this. We have hired a marketing agency that is working with us since December, and I think that you can definitely feel the difference. And we are putting a lot of resources, a lot of effort in order to make sure that the marketing will be seen as sufficient in order to, I would say, support our ambitious path.
Thank you very much for that answer, Benny. Thank you very much for your question as well, Burak. Next, we have, sorry if I'm getting this wrong, Sanapala. If you'd like to ask your question.
Yes. See, every time a crypto transaction is happening, there is a lot of energy consumption. How do we get into zero carbon footprint?
Very good question.
Very good question. Now, related also to the metaverse, because I mean, we need to speak about the carbon footprint of the metaverses of this world. I mean, if you think that it will require very low computing power, then we are completely wrong. I think that clearly, if you know somebody that is claiming that his blockchain is completely, green, then you know that he's stupid or he's lying to you. We are using computing power, so we cannot go to zero carbon footprint, but we can get closer to it. And the closest will be the best. That's why we have chosen, the proof of stake model. And that's why we are also choosing very carefully, how we are coding. We have chosen, Rust, because it has in its core, some elements that do, a guarantee that we will not use too much code to run a specific piece of code. And more than everything else, we are also, running, some low leverage of node in order to make sure that you don't need too much, electric power to create blocks and to bake, blocks on Concordium. But we need also to understand that this question is very interesting from the other side of the map. It means that you can be very high, energy consuming, but if you are using, recyclable, energy or green energy, that doesn't matter, if you know what I mean. If you are using fossil power to for example, to bake blocks in Concordium, then we have another kind of problem. But the idea here is for us, it's to be, I would say, as aligned as possible with our own philosophy. We cannot be here for the future economy if sustainability doesn't stand at the heart of what we are doing. This is one of our core value, and this is why we have chosen proof of stake, like I said, and that's why also we are going to deploy from today until the next couple of years some very smart builds, if you know what I mean, softwares that are enabling users not to pollute too much.
Thank you very much for that answer, Benny. I think that is the most important issue that all projects are facing right now. It's also a very multifaceted issue that also requires a lot of sharing and understanding and educating on, the differences between the protocols and also the actual limitations on what can be done. So I really think that, again, Concordium has taken the steps that it has from the start to really ensure, from a purely ethical point of view, that it is as carbon neutral and as ecologically responsible as possible. So that's great to hear. Next, we're going to have a question from eBucks. eBucks, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Thank you for being here. Hello, eBucks. Okay, we will come back to eBucks. We have End Police Brutality. Excellent tag name. Great to have you here. Thank you for being here. Would you like to ask your question?
Hello, everyone. Good day.
Good day to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I want to talk on the topic of the metaverse. So Concordium, as we know, it is a blockchain and it's like a software product. So the metaverse is really requiring hardware products like the Oculus, the VR.
Yes, absolutely.
Which makes it more, engaging and interesting, So my question is, will Concordium be providing, this hardware products for its users in the future, even if it's not right now, like immediately, since it's just launching. I want to know if in the future, later in the future, we have hardware products, just like as Facebook acquired Oculus. I want to know if Concordium is going to also acquire or create certain products that will make it cheaper for its users to be able to access the metaverse in the future.
Very good question. Thank you for that. The answer is clearly no at the moment. Because in this world, the best way to be seen as not doing anything is to try to do everything. And what we are doing at Concordium, at least on this level, is that we know exactly who we are and who we are not. And at the moment, we are layer one blockchain. It means that we are a software company. What we are building at the moment, it's a very interesting, smart, and well-designed, series of tools, series of a software, series of a products that are going to be used by people that are willing, to do something on their personal level, or that are going to be used by builders that are going to take, this layer one technology and build on top of it, as layer two and layer three. I don't exclude at the moment that some of those builders are going to be hardware companies that are willing, to plug in our system. So to answer your question, I think that this is not our mission or early mission. I think, to provide hardware, although I hear you and I share your vision that today the metaverse is made, if I need to express myself this way, for an average American guy that is earning $2,000 at least a month. And this is not the case of the vast majority of the humanity. So today, the metaverse is a kind of private garden, kept for the rich people of this world. And I hear you, and again, I feel the same kind of feeling that if we want the metaverse to be, widely adopted, we need, to lower the cost of using it, and especially on the hardware side. And I'm inviting all the hardware providers that maybe are here with us today to come to us and to discuss what we can do together. But at this moment, no hardware is, scheduled for Concordium.
Thank you very much for that answer. Does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up?
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Stringer, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to get a bit more information on Concordium's activities in emerging markets. I see that you have a Nigerian community, and what maybe the intention is behind that and where you see that going.
Very good question too. Related also to the metaverse. I mean, I think that today, if we still think that things are done only, by, and sorry for what I'm gonna say, by the white Protestant male, then we are completely wrong. The world is built by many other people today, and especially what we are looking at today, it's what is going on with the boom on the crypto side, but also the building side in Africa, and especially in Nigeria. We didn't choose, this country by pure hazard. We know especially, well, this market, and we believe that some of the adoption for the CCD, our native coin, and for our chain will come from emerging countries where, flexibility and go-to-market are very fast. And we can, definitely see that a lot of, I would say, new ventures are coming from this part of the world. But there is something else also that we try to do is that, that 3 billion of people are unbanked at the moment. It means that also, again, at least something like a little bit less than half of the population is not able to use a bank account. So we have also a kind of moral role to come to those countries without teaching them, what they need to do, because colonialism is dead, and thanks God that it is dead. But by trying, to as much as possible to assist users, states, corporates from emerging countries, both in Asia, Latam, and Africa, to enable themselves, to build, the future economy. And it's not because you are coming from Africa that you don't have, to be a part of the party. We believe at Concordium that diversity and fair access to technology is one of the most important things in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Beni. And we're going to have our last question now, and it's going to be from Eze Stanley Draxler at Crypto Sniper. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, thank you for being here.
All right. Hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to know if Concordium has plans of enabling smart contracts in the future?
Good question, but very short answer. We have already smart contracts on Concordium. It has been released in September last year. You can definitely deploy a smart contract in Rust today on Concordium. So it is already existing, but we plan also to interoperate with other platforms that are providing smart contracts. And you can definitely understand from what I'm telling who are the platforms that we want to build bridges with. But at the moment we are talking, you can go to Concordium, you can read our documentation, and if you want to, you can deploy a smart contract immediately.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that, Beni. And this has been a great session. Apologize to the people who have requested and others who haven't had a chance to speak. This is just going to be the first of a series, and I'm sure we're going to have Beni back again very soon. We've had a lot of fun. Beni, I want to give you the last word to say any points or anything that you want to close us with on the Metaverse.
I would like to thank you, Jonas, for the incredible, work you have done here, and the whole team at Concordium also that helped very much for this, first episode of this series. I would like to thank also all the participants. It's not obvious that you are, spending and wasting 1 hour with me from your day work. And yes, let's, meet again very soon, whether it is in reality, whether it is in the metaverse, it doesn't matter. I'm inviting you guys to follow us and to stay tuned because, again, we have big news coming up in the next couple of days.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And I would encourage everyone here to please check out the Telegram and join the Discord if you haven't already. Follow Concordium here on Twitter. There'll be a lot more of these. We're going to have a very special follow-up episode. And I think I can share the special guest. It's going to be our CEO, Lone Font Schroeder, who will be our special guest on the next episode of Off the Blocks. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank you all for participating. This has been a lot of fun. It's been very insightful and very eye-opening. And we're looking forward to the next one. So I want to see lots of emojis. I want to see you all give some clap emojis, some 100 emojis, some peace emojis. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Ernest. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Off the Blocks. To discover more about Concordium and ask your own questions, just follow us on Twitter. Concordium, made for the future economy.